Hey guys, Laura here, mom of two, holistic nutritionist, and founder of the Lavish Method, where I teach women who just want to see results, a simple way of eating that doesn't involve giving up wine, chocolate, or any of the other things that actually makes life happy. And today I wanted to come on and share with you a lot about calories. You know, there's so many myths out there. There's so many misconceptions about calories and the role that they play in weight loss and in achieving results. So I thought after a week of being asked a lot of questions about calories and really kind of diving deep with different clients and members of my community, that I would come on and, do a really good video on calories and why you need to get over them ASAP if you actually want to move on and see results. Ready? Okay, let's do this. So, first of all, what is a calorie? A calorie is just a measurement. It's a measurement of the amount of energy contained in a food. So if we start to think about calories that way, maybe that can help stop them from being so scary, because the reality of it is we eat food to get the energy from the food, create energy in our bodies, and live. Right? So a calorie is just a measurement of how much, life-giving energy is in that food. And obviously we need calories to live. So this fear of calories and this low-cal obsession, it doesn't make any sense. So let's take it a little bit further. Let's talk about, how the calorie myth looks like, and then let's bust it. So the myth of the whole eat less, exercise more version of weight loss looks like this, right? You're assuming when you think this way that, say right now, you are burning 2,000 calories a day and you are eating 2,000 calories a day. So your weight is staying steady because there's no excess calories and there's no calorie deficit. So you are not gaining or you're not losing, you're staying the same. Now, say you want to lose weight. Well, this logic says that if you drop your intake to 1,500 calories a day, then you're obviously going to be in a calorie deficit and you're going to start to lose weight. The problem is this method relies on one thing that is not true. It relies on the fact that your body is still burning that 2,000 calories a day that it was when you were eating 2,000 calories a day. And that's not true. Let's just say it. Your body doesn't want to die. Your body is designed to keep you alive. And what happens if you continually burn more than you're taking in, eventually you're going to burn through all the stored energy and you're going to die, right? That's the way it works. So your body is too smart for that. It's not going to let that happen. So after, a period of time of taking in less calories than you are burning, your body says, wait, what's up? Something's happening here. I need to be burning less energy every day so I can match what's coming in. And that way, I'm not going to starve to death and die. So your metabolism downregulates. The amount of calories you burn in a day goes down, right? And so now maybe you're burning 1,500 calories a day, or if you've been, taking in that 1,500 calories a day for quite a while, now maybe you're burning 1,400 calories a day because your body wants to have some safety built in. So it's going to burn even less. And now, which is absolutely crazy, because when you were burning 2,000 and you were eating 2,000, maybe your weight was staying the same. Now, because you've downregulated so much, maybe now you're taking in 1,500, but you're burning, 1,400. Now you have a calorie excess and you could actually start to gain weight. Crazy, right? This is what happens in all of the studies that we see about long-term weight loss after dieting, and it's the reason that diets don't work. If you look at the scientific literature and you look at all the metadata studies and all of the major studies, the one thing they have in common is that 99% of diets fail over the long term. I mean, short term, you can lose weight. Let's face it, you can lose weight in any diet. Dieting is nothing special. There have been Twinkie diets. There are banana diets that go around. The cabbage soup diet is one of them. Boiled egg diets. The diets are out there, and you can follow a diet strictly for a certain amount of time and you'll lose weight. Absolutely. But you won't keep it off. Because once you go off that diet, not only are you going to go back to the way you were eating before, but now your body has adjusted to burn less fuel every single day because you taught it to do that. And so now it's even easier to put on weight, even though you're eating, the same amount as you did pre-diet and exercising the same amount. So once you understand that, and I hope that makes sense to you guys, because it's really, really, really important that you understand that, because, low-cal foods and eating less, it's not going to work for you. And the sooner you can let go of that, the sooner you can move on, and the sooner you can adapt something that actually will work and that will feel better, because you'll actually be able to eat food and not be hungry all the time, right? So if we're not looking at calories, what are we looking at? We're looking at hormones. So your body is basically controlled by hormones. Hormones send the messages to basically do everything. So it makes sense that when you are storing fat, it's a specific hormonal state that you are in. You cannot simultaneously be in a hormonal state to store fat and a hormonal state to burn fat. It's not possible. It's one or it's the other. And the predominant controller of this state is insulin. So there are other hormones, of course, that come into play, but the main one that we need to look at is insulin, because high insulin levels lead to insulin insensitivity, which lead to higher insulin levels, which basically lead to fat storage. So the higher your insulin levels are over a prolonged period of time, the more likely you are to be in a fat storing mode. And when you are in that fat storing mode, it doesn't really matter, how little you eat. The calories don't matter. You're still not going to flip over to the fat burning mode, because the hormonal state that you need to do that isn't happening. So instead of focusing on calories, what you want to focus on is insulin levels. How do you lower those insulin levels? How do you decrease that insulin insensitivity over time, so that you can, instead of existing in this fat storing mode, you can flip over and you can exist in fat burning mode, right? And you can do it a couple of different ways. So, the way that I tend to work and the way that I tend to teach people to do this is through really looking at your macronutrients. So, I talk about these a lot. We have fat, we have protein, we have carbs. Those are the three macronutrients that we find in food. And they are basically where we get our calories, our energy from. But they do different things in our bodies. They digest differently, and they have different effects on insulin. So fat has very, very, very little effect on insulin. Fat really won't touch your insulin levels, right? Whereas carbohydrates, they have a huge effect on insulin levels, especially processed simple carbohydrates. So basically, if you can control, the macros you're bringing in, if you can focus on healthy fats and protein and, get rid of the processed carbs, get rid of the boxed food, get rid of the simple sugars, and, even some of your starchier vegetables at the beginning, then that makes a huge difference to your insulin levels. And if you continuously do that, continuously, because it takes time, especially if you've been dieting for your life, especially if you already have that metabolic downregulation, it will take time. But eventually, you're going to get to the point where your insulin levels are lower, right? You don't have the prolonged spikes. And now your body can actually access the stored food it has in the shape of fat, right? Like, it can access that and it can burn that for energy, which is amazing, because that's what it's designed to do. You just have to let the hormones that trigger that actually trigger that. So that's one way. The other way is looking at it from a slightly different vantage point. So I said that the trigger to being in fat storing mode is that your insulin levels are high over a prolonged period of time, right? So the other thing you can do is you can use a technique called intermittent fasting. And intermittent fasting is very interesting. There's a lot of good research on intermittent fasting. It can be a little bit harder to do at first than just controlling the macronutrients you're taking in. But with intermittent fasting, you're going, more extended periods of time without actually eating. And that, of course, means lower insulin levels. And when you do that over a period of time, you have these fasting hours or fasting days or however you want to approach it. It doesn't have to be major. You just have to have time in between food intake where you're actually in a fasting state. And fasting states means lower insulin. So yes, your insulin may spike when you eat, but it's not prolonged. So this is the problem we have, with some of these diets out there that tell you to eat every 2 hours. So you're eating like 6-7 times all day long. So the problem is, if you're eating, carbohydrates, which most of us are, your insulin is always high with these diets. Like it never has a chance to go into a fasted state. So you don't have the opportunity for those hormones to flip over from fat storing, because as you're eating constantly all day long, you're in that fat storing mode, right? Most of the time. They never actually get to flip over into the fat burning mode. So hopefully that made sense to you. Hopefully it'll help you get over, your fear of the calories and, worrying about how much energy you're putting into your system. Just remember, the amount of energy you're putting into your system doesn't really matter. Your body will pretty much adjust and keep things pretty constant, because that's what your body loves to do. It loves homeostasis. It loves balance, right? What's important is what you're putting into your body and when you're putting it into your body. So hopefully that was interesting to you. Thank you for taking the time and hanging out with me. I know your time is crazy valuable. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to hit subscribe down below, and you will be notified every time I put out a new video, which is basically every single week. If you loved this talk, if you love what I'm about, you can go to my website, www.lavishnutrition.com, and you can register for my free webinar. I do a free webinar every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. I go into even more depth than I'm going into now. It's an hour long, and you'll get really great actionable takeaways that you can implement in your life right away to start seeing results. So again, www.lavishnutrition.com if you want to register for that. I will see you next week. Have a great day.